Are the choices I'm making, the activities I'm participating in, every decision I'm making, are they helping me or are they hurting me? Do they develop me or do they stump me? What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of The Function. I hope you guys are having a great week. And in today's episode, we're going to be reacting to a Jordan Peterson video again. The subject of today is being trapped in childhood and how we need to actually overcome those hurdles so we can function as the man we're destined to be. So let me go ahead and pull up the video. Just give me a second here. Just bear with me. Hope everyone's doing well and already crushing it. All right, let's get the show on the road. Spin this a little bit.
This is the Peter Pan story, roughly speaking. Peter Pan is this magical boy. Pan is the god of everything, roughly speaking, right? And so it's not an accident that he has the name Pan. And he's the boy that won't grow up. And he's magical. Well, that's because children are magical. They can be anything. They're nothing but potential. And Peter Pan doesn't want to give that up. Why? Well, he's got some adults around him, but the main adult is Captain Hook. Well, who the hell wants to grow up to be Captain Hook? First of all, you've got a hook. Second, you're a tyrant. And third, you're chased by the dragon of chaos with a clock in its stomach, right? The crocodile. It's already got a piece of you. Well, that's what happens when you get older. Time has already got a piece of you. And eventually, it's got a taste for you. And eventually, it's going to eat you. And so Hook is...
All right, so let's start from the beginning. So you mentioned that Peter Pan was a magical child, right? And children are magical, right? They are happy, they're joyful, they're super positive. They have all these imaginations. Like when you ask a child what they want to be when they grow up, I mean, they're going to have all kinds of answers and amazing ambitions and expectations for themselves. And there's no doubt, there's no not worried about anything. They just expect that, right? And what happens is in this, scenario with Peter Pan, he's got all these powers. He's using his imagination and he's flying around. And the problem becomes is when if he ever wants to become an adult, he has a bad example to look up to in Captain Hook, because Captain Hook is a tyrant. He's somebody who isn't a good example for him. So in this environment that Peter Pan is in, he doesn't know what a healthy, functioning adult looks like. He doesn't know what a good man looks like. So let's tie that into today's society. You see kids growing up without fathers. You see kids having their moms raise them. You see kids struggling to have a solid foundation in how to be a man. And then they grow up confused, or they struggle with their being secure in themselves, and then they have to learn these things on their own, right? And there is a gap in the maturity, but eventually there comes a point where you just have to stop feeding into those childish behaviors and look for resources to level up, right? Because we all have struggles. I mean, my dad and I are good today, but we've had our struggles, and it really affected me in my early 20s. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a hard time finding, what I was passionate about, and it took time to really start growing up for me because there were some gaps in our relationship that I had to overcome. So when you look at the environment you're in, think about what it was like back in your teens, back as a kid. Were you in a healthy environment? Did you have both parents in your house? Did you have a father who was there in your life, who was active and, affirming you and, believing in you? Or did you miss out on that? Because that does have an effect in our development. And again, what happens is we rather hold on to our childish ways because it's safe, it's secure, there's comfort. And if we give that up, we're afraid we might just be like our father, the male figures that were in our lives, and we don't want to become that. So that's why we struggle internally, and why you see people struggle to grow up, because if they grow up, they might just manifest the things they don't want to manifest. And then let's talk about the time part. Time is ticking away all the time. It's never going to stop. Every second keeps going by. The video you're watching right now, you can't get the time back from the, you just can't do that. You're not, that doesn't work, right? Time doesn't care about us. It has no feelings. It doesn't concern themselves with what's going on in our lives. It just keeps moving forward. Doesn't matter about our race, our status, our, what we're doing in life. Time continues to move. So if we understand that time doesn't care about what we're doing, then we need to develop a sense of urgency and a sense of accountability and responsibility to get over these childish things that are keeping us from growing, that keep us from leveling up. So something we need to think about when it comes to time, that we have to just take ownership of our trash and just throw out that trash, because it's just not helping us function as better men. Let's keep going.
So traumatized by that he can't help but be a tyrant. And then Peter Pan looks at traumatized Hook and says, well, no, I'm not sacrificing my childhood for that. So that's fine, except he ends up king of the Lost Boys. In Neverland, well, Neverland doesn't exist, and who the hell wants to be king of the Lost Boys? And he also sacrifices the possibility that he'll have a real relationship with a woman, because that's Wendy, right? And she's kind of conservative, middle class, London dwelling girl. She wants to grow up and have kids and have a life. She accepts her mortality, she accepts her maturity. Peter Pan has to content himself with Tinkerbell. She doesn't even exist. She's like the fairy of porn. She doesn't exist. She's the substitute for the real thing. And so, but the dichotomy that you're...
All right, so that was a lot. So let's break that down. So Peter Pan, again, he is the king of Neverland. Now, this place he's in, we talked about environments earlier, that is a false reality, right? That's what he's tying it into. And then when something real like Wendy comes into his life, he pushes back. Why? Because he still wants to be a child. He's trapped in this childhood mentality. And if he decides, hey, if I go after this woman, am I going to manifest those things as an adult that I see from Captain Hook? So he pushes against the idea of something real, and he trades it in for a fantasy land, something that really isn't real. He's a king of lost boys, people with no direction. So think of it this way. When you're struggling with these childlike behaviors that are not good for you, that aren't helping you out, and something real comes in, like a great opportunity to advance your career. Maybe you're in school and you get another opportunity to advance your degree in your education, or another income opportunity, or a real woman who actually cares about you and desires you. And you're scared of these things because in your mind, that childhood mentality is your safe place. And giving that up might require you to grow up, might require you to actually level up and to improve yourself. And it's a scary thing, because when you aren't given the necessary tools as a kid, and now you're 25, 26 years old, and you're trying to figure out what you're supposed to do, it's a scary place to be. However, we have to eventually grow up. We have to eventually put away those childish behaviors so we can manifest everything that is in our soul, everything that we desire, think about, because we all have dreams and goals, right? We have ambitions, but there has to come a time where those things need to take place. We have to start hearing, hey, you have so much potential. Hey, you can do this or do that. We have to be sick and tired of hearing that and just take action and make choices today. Are the choices going to be easy? No. Is it going to be hard? Absolutely. However, there's good on the other side of this. Let's keep going.
You're talking about, it's very tricky, because there's a sacrificial element in maturation, right? You have to sacrifice the pluripotentiality of childhood for the actuality of a frame. And the question is, well, why would you do that? Well, one reason is it happens to you whether you do it or not. You can either choose your damn limitation, or you can let it take you unaware when you're 30, or even worse, when you're 40. And then that is not a happy day. And I see people like this, and I think it's more and more common in our culture, because people can put off maturity without suffering an immediate penalty. But all that happens is the penalty accrues, and then when it finally hits, it just wallops you, because When you're 25, you can be an idiot. It's no problem. Even when you're out in a job search, it's like, well, you don't have any experience and you're kind of clueless. It's, yeah, you're young, you know, it's no problem. That's what young people are like, but they're full of potential. Okay, well, now you're the same person at 30. It's like people aren't so thrilled about you at that point. It's like, what the hell have you been doing for the last 10 years? Well, I'm just as clueless as I was when I was 22. It's, yeah, but you're not 22. You're an old infant, right? And that's an ugly thing, an old infant.
Wow, that's super powerful. So think about it this way. We all pick a sacrifice, right? We all are going to make sacrifices in our lives. And it's either going to help us or it's going to hurt us. Everyone makes a sacrifice, whether to get better or just stay where they're at. There's no in between, right? So in this case, you can get away with certain things. You know, we make obviously dumb decisions when we're kids and in college and even early on in adulthood. But we won't get away with that later in life. So let's say, for instance, you're making bad financial decisions at 22. You got some credit card debt to pay off. You pay it off by the time 26 comes, and then you meet a girl and you guys get married. Well, if you make those same decisions again, guess what's going to happen? Your wife's going to be upset with you. It's going to prevent from certain things from happening, like having kids, having more options, going on vacations together, doing more things together. And now the penalty is higher because it accrues over time. So if there's childlike behaviors in us that aren't being addressed, that aren't being looked at, investigated, and we're not killing these things and we're not taking responsibility, the penalty will get worse and worse and worse. Think of it like interest rate, right? When you don't pay your minimum payment, what's going to happen? The interest is going to keep accruing, right? It's going to keep going up and up and up. And you're going to have to pay that back. So you don't want to be in a position where you're so far behind that you have to catch up and now you're paying so much back of poor choices you made in your life. Get ahead of it. You know, learn from your mistakes. Die to things that need to die. You know, bad behaviors, things that just aren't good for you, you know? And what happens is when you make those choices, you have a better quality of life. You develop. You're not an old infant anymore. And again, this is not judging anybody because we're all at different stages. We're all on a journey here, right? As a man, we all go through things, right? But eventually we have to take ownership of it so we can level up, so we can experience the things we desire, right? Because men, we're supposed to conquer, we're supposed to produce, and we're supposed to receive respect. But if we're not making good decisions, how do we expect to receive those things, right? How can we expect to get those type of benefits if we're not even making those choices to be in that, you know, to have those things? It you can't have your cake and eat it too. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. We have to understand that there are some behaviors that aren't good to manifest anymore. There are some things that we just say, you know what? I could, you know, play video games for 30 minutes a night, an hour a night, but maybe I should be working on something I care about. You know, I could, you know, stay up late streaming movies every night, but maybe I should go to bed a little earlier, or maybe I should turn off the TV and just spend time with my spouse and my kids. You know, I could work till 8 o'clock, but maybe I should take off by 7 so I can be there for my wife. You know, just little things like that, right? So we need to consider these things because, again, working hard is not bad. But if it gets in the way of things, then we have to really look at maybe I'm a workaholic and that's not good for my relationships around me. We have to, you know, have a healthy perspective on that. I'm not saying work till you're burnt out, but you want to work hard. Or maybe you're working a job and we shouldn't be on our phones all day, right? We shouldn't be on social media. We should be engaged with what we're doing, right? Because when we do those things and we actually are engaged, guess what's going to happen? When we get off our job, it's going to carry on into the rest of the night. So that's why we have to approach things. Let's keep going.
Infant. So part of the reason you choose your damn sacrifice, because the sacrifice is inevitable, but at least you get to choose it. And then there's something that's even more complex than that in some sense, is that The problem with being a child is that all you are is potential, and it's really low resolution. You could be anything, but you're not anything. So then you go and you adopt an apprenticeship, roughly speaking, and then you become, at least you become something. And when you're something, that makes the world open up to you again. You know, like if you're a really good plumber, then you end up being far more than a plumber, right? You end up being a good employer. Not that plumbers, I'm not putting plumbers down. It's like more power to plumbers. They've saved more lives than doctors. So, hygiene, right? So, you know, if you're a really good plumber, well then you have some employees, you run a business, you train some other people, you enlarge their lives, you're kind of a pillar of the community, you have your family. You can, once you pass through that narrow training period, which narrows you and constricts you and develops you at the same time, then you can come out the other end with a bunch of new possibility at hand. And Jung talked about that. He thought that.
So again, making a sacrifice is inevitable. If you're choosing to be ambitious or lazy, you're making a sacrifice. Either way, you're sacrificing something. So when you're making decisions and making choices, think about, is that sacrifice you're making you a better person? Is it making you a better man? If it's not, then we need to reevaluate our choices. And when you step into the realm of apprenticeship, think of it like Star Wars, right? If you have seen Star Wars, you know, you have a Jedi and an apprentice, right? Now, the apprentice is going to be a Jedi someday, but he spends years training and learning from his master. So when his master is gone, he's in position to take that next step. So when you're in your career field, when you're developing a skill, you are in apprenticeship, right? You're like in elementary school stage, but then you go to middle school, then high school, then college, and you graduate, and now you've become a master in your craft. What happens when someone's a master in their craft? Well, more opportunities open up to them. They make more income. They are demanded more. They bring more value, and overall, they're a person that people look up to, and they function as the man they're supposed to be. That's why when you see high value men, like, man, like they've got it going on. Well, they made the sacrifices. They started from ground zero and worked their way up. It took time. It took a lot of sacrifices. They sacrificed certain things so they can be where they're at. So if you got behaviors you need to unlearn them. You know, make those sacrifices. Put those things away. It's worth it, because at the end of the day, you're going to find more joy. You're going to find more inspiration. You're going to find yourself going, man, like, I love what I'm doing. This is something I enjoy. And you're more focused. You have more clarity. So don't be bothered by the apprenticeship role. Go through that narrow road, work your way and develop, and you'll come out on the other side like, man, those 5 years, those 10 years of developing was so worth it, because look at me now. I got my degree, right? I got where I need to be. And what happens at that point, you can now give more. You can now share your wisdom, your knowledge, your experiences, and then you can pass that on to the next generation of men. That's the key. See, when you put away the childish things, you take on more responsibilities and more leadership roles, you become a high value man. And that's what we should all strive for. You know, whatever role we're playing, we should strive for that. It's so key to just give up those things, because yeah, you know, playing the video games, paying attention to fantasy football, watching sports all the time, you know, scrolling through social media, what's going on in politics, what's going on in the news. Is that really serving us? Is that really helping us, consuming all that all day long? Like, just think about it. I would say no. It's not going to help me. It's not helping me with my development. So there's things we need to think about. Let's keep going.
The proper part of the proper path of development in the last half of life was to rediscover the child that you left behind as you were apprenticing. And so then you get to be something and regain that potential at the same time. Very, very smart. Well, he was very, very smart, so that's very wise thing to know. So, yep. Sacrifice. And we'll talk more about that too. You get to pick your damn sacrifice. That's all. You don't get to not make one.
So here's the end result of that. When you're elevating, when you're the apprentice and you're getting better and better at what you're doing, those child imaginations and that potential is now coming back. And now as you're elevating, you have this belief in yourself. You have these ideas and these things you want to do because you put away the bad behaviors, the childlike behaviors that weren't good for you, for something greater, for something better. And now you leave behind a legacy for yourself, for your family, for your kids, your grandkids, all that. And it's just so powerful because is it beneficial? No, not it's not easy, but it's powerful because people are going to remember you for something. And do you want to be remembered for someone who was just average? Or do you want to be remembered for someone who actually took some chances, who was patient, who developed and was able to spread those seeds out more and more? A question I've been asking myself lately so I can just function as a better man in society is like, are the choices I'm making, the activities I'm participating in, every decision I'm making, are they helping me or are they hurting me? Do they develop me or do they stump me? Because if the choices I'm making are not helping me grow, if I'm consuming too much of something, then I need to kill it. I either need to remove it or do it less. That's it. One thing I've been working on is just spending less time with like Facebook, Instagram, and my focus has shifted to YouTube only. Like, just get off that stuff. Am I perfect at that? No. But I've noticed there's been a change in me over the last month. There's been a shift. So you have to look at your life and go, okay, here are the opportunities in front of me. Here's what I want. That's what I'm going to go for. Yes, I have to start with apprenticeship. Okay, cool. But I know at the end of this, I'm going to experience a lot of fruit, a lot of experience, and a lot of wisdom that I can give to the next generation. Because what I don't want for me, I don't want to explain to my future kids, yeah, dad didn't do everything he was supposed to do when it comes to our financial well-being. Dad didn't really level up like he should have. I don't want to sit back and with all those regrets. That's not worth it to me. So giving up those distractions and those things that do not benefit me is worth it. Because that's how we should look at our lives. We should look at our lives with how do you want to be when you're 30? What do you want to look like when you're 30, when you're 40, when you're 50, when you're 60? What version of that I should say, what version do you want to manifest? What does that look like for you? Because when you start thinking long term, the decisions you make today become more important. The pettiness, the immaturity stuff, the drama, all that stuff doesn't mean anything to you. Because men, we shouldn't get caught up in that. We're supposed to be ambitious. We're supposed to conquer, provide. That's it. That's what we should be doing, you know, and strength too. Those are our qualities. But if we don't deal with the roots of these childhood behaviors that do not help us, and we don't get in the right environments, and we don't make the necessary sacrifices, and we don't, develop in our apprenticeship so we can become experts in our fields, we'll just be average. And we'll live with a lot of regrets. So I hope this challenges you. I hope this helps you out. And if you're, struggling with the mentality of being a victim and trying to overcome that, go check out my other video I reacted to from Jordan Peterson of just to stop being a victim. And I will catch you on the next episode.